Ooh, we're away. Excellent. We're live. Right, I'm just gonna take a minute for people to excuse me, scratching, for people to come and log on, for those who wanted to be here. And other than that, then we'll take questions from the floor, so to speak, but around the topic of the first question that was posted when I said I was going to do a series of lives. So as I say, we'll just wait a few minutes. Hi Guria, hi Mark. We'll just wait a few minutes for people to log on, because I've had some people say they were going to be here, and some DMs and various things. So hopefully they will join us. But as I say, yeah, I've been putting more stuff on Facebook. Hi Tim. I've been putting more stuff on Facebook over a little while now about the things that I do, because I've worked away in the background for many years doing what I do with clients, with land, with horses, with houses, more and more in the equine world, which I love. But I wanted to talk a bit more, I suppose, because clients find it fascinating when they work with me about how I see energies permeating and surrounding everything. I would say I used to work a lot, just while people log on, I'll just bore the people who are here to death. I used to work an awful lot with people and with health conditions. Hi, Mark. Yeah, I used to work an awful lot with people and health conditions and things like that. So I used to work a lot with the aura and the chakras and things like that. But over the years, I watched so many people crippled by their own emotional, good evening, Rachel, their own emotional and mental thinking, that in essence, they were coming to me to make them well. And nobody can make anybody else well. So that I would have people come to me literally, hi Mark, again, at the end of their tether. So they were suffering from all sorts of horrendous conditions, and their life had got smaller and smaller and smaller. And often they tried every other remedy, and I was then the last resort. So they would come to me in crippling illness and crippling life circumstances and expect to be healed by an outside person. And of course, that isn't possible. You are in control of your own reality, and you are in control of your own life. No one can suddenly make things disappear. You go back to if they'd come for a session, they go back to the same house, the same life. Nothing fundamentally changes for them. They might feel some relief for a while they're with you, go, oh, that's great. But you can't sit there and wait for your life to change. We see an awful lot of esoteric stuff on the internet about all the universal energies are changing. Sit back, and relax, and your life will be transformed. It won't be transformed if you don't take control of it and do anything with it. What will actually happen? Nothing. You'll just get more of the same. So yeah, I've just been talking a little bit about energies, as I say, and how I see them. And we're going to be talking about that while people logged on. So I did a post, as I say, a few weeks ago, because I've been talking more about energies, about actually when I work with clients and talk to them in depth about these things, they find it fascinating. So I thought I'd come online and talk a little bit more about it. So one of the first questions I had posted, or submitted to me to discuss, was relating to something that I had mentioned in a previous life about the aura. So one of the things I'm going to be talking to you about tonight, and do post questions as we go, because it's supposed to be an interaction. It's not supposed to be me lecturing for an hour. So if you've got questions, please post them. If I haven't made myself clear, or I'm talking about something you don't understand, or you want me to elaborate further, if I can, I will. So I want it to be a proper discussion, if you like, as opposed to me lecturing, because one of my key things when I'm teaching people to douse and to do geomancy, etc., is the fact that I see how I see. Other people need to learn how they experience the other side of reality, the non-physical reality. Or how I see it is not how anybody else is going to see it. How I experience it isn't how anybody else is going to experience. And that's what makes it brilliant, which is why that side of our mind and our existence has always been so intangible, because the reality of it is in the eye of the beholder. So yeah, Tim was one of the first people to post, as I said, and his question was about the aura and how we use the aura to interact with our environment. Now, one of the common threads that people often get, or one of the perceptions they have of the aura, is that it emanates from the body and it has an edge. And it goes so far out, and a lot of dowsers, a lot of people will say to you, and it goes that far out and that's it. It stops sort of there. I actually don't see the aura as anything like that. I actually see it in reverse. I've spoken about this before. The whole of the universe on a non-physical realm is full of energy. Energy is the exchange of heat or work, if you like, in terms of physics, from one body to another. And actually, our aura is that exchange of heat or work from the sort of space-time element to us. But also, it does not have a definite edge. It's more, as I've described this before, it's more that the energy of the cosmos condenses and condenses and condenses and condenses and condenses and condenses, and there's you in the middle. After a certain point going out, I've likened this many times to what Rudolf Steiner said about the acorn. The acorn does not contain all the information within it to grow an oak tree. What the acorn does is block out all the other influences in the universe that isn't oak tree. And I would say our aura actually sort of forms very similar. There comes a point where we need all this cosmic universal energy to be alive, to be a physical human being, and to be aware energetically, to have subliminal subconscious experiences. There comes a point in that awareness to make it manageable that we need to start blocking out everything that isn't Faye, that isn't Mark, that isn't Rachel, isn't Tim, that isn't Guria. We need to block out, and everybody else is here, we need to block out all those things that aren't us so that our consciousness can cope with the nature of our reality. Because the nature of reality is, it's a strange phenomenon. People talk about reality as if it's a set thing, and it isn't. It literally is all down to it's all in the eye of the beholder. And the universe is a remarkable thing. People look at the universe and think, oh, there's loads of planets dotted about. There's nothing in between them that's space. And we're on the edge of the Milky Way. We're on this galaxy, edge of the Milky Way, blah, 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 blah. But actually, the gaps between the planet is not empty. Space is not empty. The gravitational field that goes through the whole of the universe, that makes an apple fall, that is part of space. It's what bends light, what bends time. The whole of space is spinning, 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 a bit like a shell. The whole thing is spinning, so that when the Earth spins, the universe is also spinning. Light spins around a planet, it changes. This is why black holes condense and fall into nothing. It's the spin of the matter coming in and then dropping into a black hole. The universe started with a big bang, it expands, and then according to physics it will contract again, go boom into a black hole out the other side, and off we go again. So in terms of our existence, we are minute. We're not, we hardly barely register on any scale. So, but the thing about spin is that the whole of the energetic world spins, and your aura spins. So it's not that the aura sort of thing emanates from the body, it's the fact that the universe condenses to form you, and you are in a state of spin constantly. But your aura isn't actually also one thing. Now, people talk about the aura as if it's one type of energy. I actually, again, don't see, because there is no one type of energy. I don't actually see sorry, got itchy nose. I don't actually see the aura as one thing. Now, if you imagine your body is behind this and your aura is several sheets of tracing paper in front of it, each with a different picture on. Each has got a different picture of what surrounds and permeates your body. So there is an energetic spin, if you like, that is the aura. On other levels, when I look at it, I'll see you are sat in a giant toroid, a great big donut, if you like, and you're in the middle of it. And this energy goes up and around like that. And again, it goes around and around and around like a big slinky. It goes around you. So the hoops go around, but the energy goes around the hoops. And I think that is probably what a lot of people almost sense as the aura, is that kind of spin, which again, like I say, is that like the condensing of the universe around you. But there are other energetic forms that you emanate that I think I'll class them as the aura, because they, I won't say emanate, but they are connected to your body. Some specifically are what dowsers will call radial lines. And if you are any good at dowsing, you can practice this. You don't have to do it on yourself. You can do it on anything. So if I'm here, that's my body. What comes out are like long umbrella handles. They come out and they've got a little hook on the end. And they have another one coming out with a little hook on the end. And they don't come out on a horizontal plane. They come out from all over you, like a porcupine, like a hedgehog. So they come out from all different angles with all these different hooks upon it. And you get that coming off all matter. All matter gives off that. So if you want to test that tonight, just on the vertical, horizontal plane, you could put a cup in the middle of your table on a piece of paper, and then you can get your dowsing pendulum. I had a dowsing pendulum. There it is. So you can get your dowsing pendulum, and you can go around the object. I'll just try, not a very bad example. I'll go around the object till you hit a radial line, and then your pendulum will do that, and then you'll go to the end of the line, and it will start to do that kind of thing. And that's basically where a hook curves around. Don't worry about which direction or everything the hook is, but you can practice that to say there are these radial lines coming off all objects. And if you imagine them like tentacles coming off an octopus, they are reaching out for the surroundings. And it's those radials. So if we come into contact with something else that's got radials coming out of it, and particularly objects do this of a particular mass, what happens is the two radial lines are leaking. So if you get your salt and pepper pot, if they're about the same size, you start moving them in, you'll find these radial lines that are doing this nice little curl will suddenly go boink, and they join up and they become one line of connection. So the two objects then become connected. And I'll use the word energy because I can't find another word for it, but they become connected by this one line between the two objects, a similar mass. So hills of a certain mass, mountains of a certain mass, have lines that connect them. In mountains, they tend to hoop over the sky in these massive, great rainbow shapes. And when we come into contact with people, if you are stood within a certain distance to a certain person, your energetic radials and theirs will link up. Now that's part, from years and years of observing it, that's part of a very subtle communication method, non-verbal, that we have with people, with this energetic exchange. Now, the interesting thing about those radials is that they are more comfortable, if you like, when we're in random groups. So if you go into a party, people form random groups, and those people have got probably recognize similar energetic properties to themselves, similar mindset, similar body type, similar facial expressions, everything. We go for like. We are attracted to like. It's just the way it is. It's probably part of the survival instinct. But interesting enough, when you, I'm going off track a bit about the aura, but if you put people in straight lines, very straight lines, like queues, for certain people, that causes these radial lines to break up and actually contract back. And that can leave us feeling really, really depleted. Now, put a thumbs up if you've ever stood in a queue and for no apparent reason just felt, oh, and it's not the length of the queue, you just feel like all of a sudden the life blood has been sucked out of you. It's part of that mechanism of things just breaking down. So actually, you know, we're not supposed to form, there are certain ways, there are certain things within nature that, yes, there are straight lines, but they're generally straight over short distances or whatever. So it's about curvature and the flux of energy, and putting it in rigid circumstances doesn't necessarily suit us. So anyway, that's radials. That's one of the things that you sit in. As I said, you also sit in this great big donut. One of the other things that I see, and I know some other people do see sometimes, it's not that common a thing that I've come across through research, is the ability to see images within a person's aura about particular episodes or events in their lives. So it is, if people have been through particularly traumatic instances, they can be stuck in that moment in time. And then within the aura, it's almost like a movie playing. You can see the same scenario of this argument or this accident or deathbed scene, or whatever it may be, is playing over and over and over and over and over. There's no let up, it doesn't stop, it's just stuck on repeat. And those are often traumatic experiences, or they can be images of somebody's things that are completely stressing them out, or they're fixated on something. I once had a chap who suffered from OCD came to see me, absolutely fixated, and all that was flying around in his auras was his bunch of car keys. Just get going. I didn't know he got OCD. He just got this car key, an image of car keys just going round and round and round. It sounds mad when you describe it, but as it turns out, he was OCD. And the thing that had actually triggered it off was his car keys. So I said, because there are trigger points to these things. And it was like he was stuck in that moment of, oh my God, I've lost my car keys. And it was still there. So you can't get rid of these things. I'll say, people talk about clearing your aura. It's not possible for me to remove that from somebody's aura. You have to give them the tools, the mechanism to release it themselves. Nobody else can make you better. You have to be given strategies to, in effect, change who you are, because it's who you are that's making you ill. It's who you are that's got you in this mess. So you need to look at being somebody different, and God knows I've done it and been there. You need to look at being somebody different. What skills are you not tapping into? So as I say, if you've got questions, post them as we go, because I know some of these topics and how people expected it. People often ask me, what colour's my aura? And it's like, well, any colour you want, really. I just don't really see them like that. So as I said, so the whole of your aura is spinning. You've got this giant toroid around you, and then you've got these hedgehoggy spines that are on another layer of tracing paper, if you like, going out from you. Another one that I can see sometimes, but not all the time, is images within people's life of things that they've got stuck at in that moment in time and they've been able to move on from. And then one of the other things that is seldom talked about, because people talk about the aura as this lovely light emanating and all the rest of it, and I'm sure that may be another thing that other people see. I just don't see it like that, and that's fair enough. We all see it differently. Well, one of the other things we sit in looks remarkably like a giant Rubik cube, believe it or not. There's this great big square thing that goes around us, and the energy line does this convoluted pattern all the way through to create this, and then it'll go one way and off and down, and it looks like a giant Rubik's cube that we're sat in. And again, I think some of these things are probably a representation of forces around number. I used to do a lot of reading about maths, and I read a great book, and I can't remember the title of it now, a mathematician, and he spoke about how previous civilizations bandied about gods when they were talking about forces. They would talk about the god of this and the god of that. What he believed, and actually when you look at the work that he did, it's very believable. They spoke about gods because they were trying to personify forces. And he said, ancient people talked about gods the way mathematicians now bandy about theories and theorems to explain the reality, but they're explaining forces connected with number, because the whole of the universe is number. So the energy structures that I see are so mathematically perfect, kaleidoscope fractals, it's number. So the cube represents a number. We've got the number 0 to 9 going through everything, through the whole of our body. We are a representation of the Fibonacci sequence. So at some level, those shapes will appear in your aura. So hedrons, pentagons, squares, triangles. They're all on some level, as I see them, embedded within the aura, because the numbers 0 to 9, if you like, bring non-physical reality into manifestation through the forces that they embody. Now, there's a brilliant book if anybody wants to get a tiny foothold into that kind of subject, and it's called The Beginner's Guide to Constructing the Universe by a gentleman called Michael Schneider, who was, I think at the time he wrote that one, he was an elementary school maths teacher in America, and it frustrated him how that maths was only taught to children in terms of quantity. 5 oranges, take away 4, how many have you got left? 1. Maths, actually, that's only a very limited way of using number. And I was very maths phobic at school, despite the fact that I used to see all these beautiful fractal energies around people, surrounding them, going through them, beautiful. But the number I was taught at school didn't relate to the sacred geometry that I was seeing. And it is sacred geometry. Our chakras are sacred geometry. Our aura is sacred geometry. We are sacred geometry. So I got into other types of maths, if you like, sacred geometry. And The Beginner's Guide to Constructing the Universe is a marvelous book because he talks about the character of numbers. He talks about the fact that numbers are, have character and they have force, and what the ancients believed numbers to be. So once you realize that actually sacred geometry is nothing to do with number, if you like, it's to do with measurement, you can use your body to create structures. Let's say I want to take the digit 1, I'm going to use that as a measurement of 1, hand to wrist, or I'm going to use that as a measurement of 1, wrist to elbow. Cubit, that's a cubit. Wrist to elbow, hand, tip of the finger to elbow, that is roughly speaking a cubit in ancient measurements. So you get a stick that long, say, right, I'm going to measure out my labyrinth now using that stick. And that is as complicated really as sacred geometry needs to get. Once you worked out what you want to measure, you scale up, if you like. So it's a very simplistic term, but yeah. So within our aura, sorry, I can go on for Britain about this kind of stuff. So within our aura, there are many different shapes that, as I say, that would represent the 0 point, the not really anything before creation, dividing to become the 2, the Vesica Pisces, or the 1, 1 structure, then to 2, then to 3, then to 4. So there's all of these different structures, these shapes within our aura. And it is the most, it then becomes, when I pull out from a person, if you like, to look at them as a whole, I don't see, as I say, the aura as this light emanating. What I do is see us within this nested, if you like, within this huge fractal form of energy that is just constantly spinning, constantly moving, and it's almost like a tube when I go into it, into another. If you take the body away from it, so let's ignore your body, let's just look at your aura, because the two are completely distinct on one level. If I want to work with someone and I want to really understand what makes them tick, my mind is able to go into the aura and it will look like a giant fractal kaleidoscope. And if you go into the center spot, as fractals do, it just opens and opens and opens. What you find, it's like a tube, and you're constantly, as I say, going round in this spin. Going into that space when I'm working with someone allows me almost like to step into their skin. So I will feel any pain that they've got in their body. It will represent in my body in the same place. I feel their anxiety. I feel their fear. I can feel their childhood traumas. I can see what has happened to them in certain instances, like looking out through their eyes. So there is an awful lot of information contained within this energy. And in essence, physical matter, before it becomes physical matter, everything is in formation. If you read, there's a wonderful book called by Jude Currivan. I think it's Consciousness of the Universe, Universal Consciousness, something like that. It was her last book. Sorry, I've got it on the shelf and I've forgotten the title of it. A conscious universe, something like that. She talks about all energy, if you like. It's not necessarily energy, it is information, and I think that's what a lot of people are working on. They talk about energy, but energy in terms of physics, like I say, it's the exchange of heat or work between one body and another. So as an example of that, you've got a wave rocking up and down in the ocean. There is energy in that water. When the wave hits a rock, the energy is released into the air molecules, so we hear the wave go against the rock. The water doesn't actually make the noise, the air does. That's what physics means by the exchange of heat or work from one body to another. And I think when we're working with the more subtle areas, we're not necessarily talking along those lines. The other course form of energy is the electromagnetic charge of a photon. Well, there's light through everything, and obviously that will affect us profoundly. But slight interruption. But I think with the more subtle energies, when you go back to the quantum levels, what they're talking about is energy in information. So it's not quite become matter, but it contains all the information to become form. And that is a lot of the stuff that is going on in your aura. And when we go through life, our aura contains all the information of our experiences, for good or bad. But unfortunately, what we're not taught, particularly in Western society, is any form of, for a lot of people, self-awareness or spirituality to deal with trauma without internalizing it, and to be able to look for happiness internally. Most people look for happiness externally. They're waiting for the best job to make them happy, the big house to make them happy, the perfect partner to make them happy. If you're waiting for that to make you happy, you will have a long wait, because happiness has to come from within you. And what you see in people's auras, like I say, is that people have had a particularly traumatic life, or have allowed themselves to have a particularly traumatic life by often not standing up for themselves and bending to other people's will. You find that their aura, and how can I describe this? It almost becomes not exactly dense, but imagine energy's got a flow. It sort of becomes really sluggish and stiff almost. It doesn't flow. And it's like they're not really participating in life. And the toroidal energy that spins around and goes around and around and around and around, it sort of almost starts to, it's not that it turns inward, because it's not the same. It's not like it wraps around the body. It's not like these things are intimately connected to the body. Your body's on one, like I said, on one layer of tracing paper, and all your energetic forms are on another. Together they form the book that is you. There obviously there are interconnections, but in many respects they're quite simple, because you can't have one without the other, are they? You can't have an aura if you haven't got a body. Well, saying that, you can, because if you've got an amputee, you can still see in the auric field where the missing limb used to be. But what I mean is that your body can be one thing, so that you can exist in one way, like we know people do. On the outside they look like they're functioning, they're perfectly normal, and everyone thinks, oh, they're fine. And mentally in here they're not, emotionally in here they're not. And that is normally very visible in the aura when people are putting on a brave face. And also people become so battered by life that they withdraw, and when they feel particularly threatened by life, they can withdraw as well. And what you then start to find is that they develop all kinds of health conditions because they perceive the outside world to be a threat. So I've just forgot to scroll down the questions. I've just looked at them and gone, oh my God, I haven't answered anybody's questions. So what happens then when people are particularly feeling particularly ill or particularly threatened, if you like, in their life, that reality is too much to cope with, that's when you find illness starts to manifest. And it manifests first out in these energy fields. It doesn't manifest in the body first. Things go astray. That's what I'm trying to say. Things go astray in these various formations that you see out in energy. So when people start to become ill, it is almost like it's the last indication that something has been very wrong for a long time. Now, I know that sounds really bizarre, because you can't say, oh, we're not all ultimately responsible for our illness. As to a certain degree we are, particularly when we're adult, because we are in control of our lives. Sometimes, no, we are in circumstances that mean things are beyond our control. Again, that's in Jude Currivan's book about the psychical nature of time that we go through. So no, of course, no one would want to be in Syria at the moment. Nobody in the right mind would, say, oh, they've brought that on themselves consciously. Of course you haven't. You get caught in big dynamic cycles of time that are beyond you. They're the learning curve of the universe, and you just happen to, it's a terrible thing to say, is it? You happen to be in that space at that particular time. But yeah, so we can bring all these things not bring them onto ourselves, but by limiting ourselves, not being true to who we are, and not being afraid to do that, and not worry about other people think. It's at that moment when we start to curtail ourselves. I don't want to, deal with that. We start to pull back. We're afraid. We're afraid of what other people are going to say to us, how they're going to react. We're afraid. And it's that kind of fear of, what if people don't like me? What if they shout at me? What if they're this one? So we start to pull back, and our energy starts to pull back as well. And that is really when things are going to go wrong. And I know, I'm guilty of doing that myself for many years, not standing up for myself, and ended up in an abusive marriage. And it made me very, very ill in the end, to the point that, I was physically nearly breaking. And at that point in time, you just think, well, nobody's worth self-sacrificing myself for. Or just notice I still got my admission band on my bracelet. So let me go down the questions, because I was oh yeah, Rachel, you struggle when people come up close behind you in a queue. That's what I said. It's about your energy sort of collapses when you're in a line. It's horrible. Queues should not be done. I think it's not so bad when you've got the curly ones. You always feel better when you're on the bend. When you get in the straight again, it's like, oh god, not again. So so never queue. I see the Europeans, they hardly ever queue, and they've got the very right attitude. Just barge your way to the front and go for it. So yes, and frozen time in the matrix of the traumatic experiences. We hold things, as I say, in our aura, and they can be quite, they're confidential, obviously, if you can see those things between you and the person, if they are a client. And if they happen to be a passerby in the street, well, there's not a lot you can do about it. So in terms of working out strategies, in terms of working out how to deal with your trauma, that's not necessarily esoteric experience. One of the things for working out trauma is actually personal development. It's the best thing that you can do is to actually consciously engage with your traumatic experience, not to put yourself back there, not the way, you don't have to relive it, not the way some neuro-linguistic programmers would have you do. But one of the big things to write at is to address your core beliefs about yourself. So you take a lovely piece of paper and you think about core beliefs about yourself that you think are preventing you from doing what you're meant to be doing. So let's say you're stuck in a dead-end job and you think, oh, I don't like this, I really want to do something else. I will get this back to the aura, by the way. One of the things you do is you sit there and think, right, when I was a kid, I wanted to be a ballet dancer. And now I'm stacking boxes in an Amazon warehouse. Now you look at, why didn't I get there? What stopped me from getting there? Okay, if you're only 4'3", that's probably got something to do with it. But if you had every other capability of getting there, why didn't you? And if you look back, it'll often be because it was too hard. Why was it too hard? Because I wasn't going to get there. Why did I think I wasn't going to get there? Why did I lack that belief in myself? think back, did somebody tell me, oh, you'll never do it? You know, you have to look at the core beliefs about yourself. So fundamentally, what is your self-worth, self-esteem? Because all our fear, our coping mechanisms are often driven by fear. Their fear of being exposed, if you like, of being this inadequate, emotionally crippled person that you feel inside, that so many people feel. So they put on a persona. Of course, we all, the human condition is about, sort of learning. Is I won't say suffering, but it's about learning. And we don't succeed without failure. We won't, if you don't try and fail and get yourself back up again, you're not going to get very far, are you, really? Because you've got to learn. So one of the things that when I work with people to get them to do would be to write out the core beliefs about themselves. So you might think, oh, I'll never have this, I'm not worthy because, and it's identifying, and then you sit with the energy, or if you like, the feeling of that belief for a minute, and then you go, is that belief serving me now? Or how is it not serving me? How is that belief manifesting negatively in my life? So if my core belief was, let's say, I'll never amount to anything because I'm a girl when I was a kid, or, women are there to be subservient and look after the men and put themselves second, or whatever beautiful family I come from, whatever it may be, then you have to look at it and say, how is that not serving me now? So if it's not serving me, then I'm going to get rid of it and I'm going to have a new core belief, and you write out your new one. Now, the thing is, what that does is influence the subliminal mind, because the subliminal mind does not question what you tell it. So if you wake up every morning and go, God, I'm fat, God, I'm ugly, your subliminal mind isn't sat there with some flag with your name on it going, no, you're not, you're gorgeous. Your subliminal mind goes, okay, I'm fat and I'm ugly. Doesn't query it. So then you're programming yourself to be that, and what you believe, your perception of reality becomes your reality. So if you wake up believing I am unworthy, then your aura manifests that, and it influences how other people react to you. If you wake up in the morning saying to yourself, I am marvelous, I am brave, I am funny, I am worthy, I'm intelligent, then that affects the energy, the flow of information in your aura, and it changes. So it's really worth, Rachel like that one. So it's really worth doing that. So people often talk about healing and changing your energies as some kind of really weird, esoteric, yeah, you can meditate, don't get me wrong, I do, and all the rest of it. But fundamentally, taking control of your aura and taking control of your life is an action. It is a conscious action. Because we talk about energies somehow as if they're all very subtle and beyond our control, and it's all to do with the subconscious and the subliminal, and somehow our conscious mind is this demon, and it's what blocks us out from what experience, the monkey mind, chatter, chatter, chatter. Yes, it might be the monkey mind, but the social mind is also incredibly important, because it is that mind, your conscious mind, that programs your subliminal and subconscious minds to a degree in how you perceive your reality and how you deal with it. And that is what manifests as your reality. And the social mind, of course, means that we get on with other people. If we didn't have a social mind, we couldn't create cohesive communities. Not that they're all cohesive, but we don't have the potential to create cohesive communities. And it's from those cohesive communities that we learn from each other and we develop spiritually. So you need the two halves of your mind. And those two halves are very reflected in your aura. But your subliminal mind, while it controls all the bodily functions that you're not aware of, your blood circulation, your kidneys cleaning at X time of night, your liver function, you don't have to think about any of that. It is nonetheless very subtly programmed by what you think about yourself on really, really deep levels. So I would say, don't believe everything you think about yourself unless it's very positive. And don't believe everything you think anyway. Always go at your thinking with a bit of critique. We all know negative people, don't they? Every bit that comes out of their mouth, everything they say is incredibly negative. It's all doom and gloom. I mean, how many of us like to be around people like that? And that is manifested in their aura. They just have these writ large that they just, yeah, everything is doom and gloom, and it's them often that become ill. So that was about a bit about releasing trauma. It's about actually going there and saying, okay. And it's also about, because time is cyclical, like I said, we can get stuck in time. And it's also about reaffirming that consciously you're not in the same place as you were when the trauma occurred. You know, although time is cyclical, for all intents and purposes, our progression through time has moved forward. We are no longer there. And it's important to be thankful and grateful for all our experiences. Some of the trauma that I see in people's auras is unbelievable, but it's important to be grateful for every experience, because that is what's brought us to where we are now. And if it's brought us through an epiphany moment and out the other side when we're more aware, then thank God for that, because we've got to a threshold and broke through. We can look back at that experience and say, you know, it was absolutely traumatic, but I'm grateful because I wouldn't have the awareness that I have now. I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now. And if you've gone from a very traumatic place to a place where your life is expanding, hallelujah. If I hadn't been through that, I wouldn't be where I am now. And you can see that in people who aren't so self-aware, and their life is just one trauma after another, after another, after another. And you can hear them saying, why me? This has gone wrong, and this has gone wrong, and this has gone wrong. And they've gone into victim mode, if you like, because they're unaware that the why me, what's the one common denominator in all these disasters that are befalling my life? It's like, it's you. You're the one common denominator. Obviously, you can't say that to someone. You've got to try and coax them into that realization. But their patterns of behavior are the same. So they keep generating the same. You won't generate anything else if you don't change your action, and you do that consciously. And that has a huge knock-on effect on your aura. Positive people have positive auras, negative people have negative auras. And we can choose to be positive or negative. Right, Rachel's question then. I'm very conscious I don't want to keep you all evening, because I can talk for Britain, in case you hadn't noticed. Sorry, I just got distracted then. I could hear the hunting cry of an ice cream van going down the road, looking for its prey. Talking about those radial lines that connect people. No, they're not energy cords. Energy cords, in essence, I don't actually see them as people do. Some people say, oh, we're corded from here to other people. I don't see it as corded. I see it as a nobody's energy is absolutely fundamentally separate from anybody else's, because the universe is not full of separate things. It's our perception of separation that means my aura's here and your aura's there. Therefore, logically, to join them, there's got to be some kind of cord. I actually don't see energies like that, because there comes a point when you start to see energies that the person's energy and the universal energy, you slip from one to the other. It's just a progression. And so everybody's energy is interconnected. I think it's just when you see, I don't see lines of communication, but I can see that there's a connecting, there's some kind of, and to me it's a non-local element of connection between that person is connected to somewhere else. Physically there's somewhere else, but energetically they're in the same space, because the energetic realm, it's all together. The universe on an energetic realm is one big homogeneous blob, and time doesn't exist. It's all now. It's all now. So energetic cords for me I just don't see it in that way, because when I go into somebody's, like I say, when I look at somebody's aura, I find I struggle for people to say, well, look at my aura, not the outside aura, because there isn't that barrier. Once I go into their auras, I can go off and go into any energy, because actually it's that energy that feeds that person. So it's not a question of separating it like that. So I know some people do see energetic cords. It's the fact that I don't see anything as separate from anything else, I think it's probably to do with your mindset, your perception of how all these things sit together. Because I don't see separation, I don't see things, the need to connect things, because they are already connected. Does that make sense? It's probably not the answer you were hoping to hear, Rachel, but I hope that kind of makes sense. So it's a bit like Einstein called it spooky action at a distance, isn't it? It's that non-local connection bit. I don't need a cord to connect me to a member of my family that's in Canada. We are connected on an energetic level because there is no separation. Does that make sense? I don't know if it makes sense. It makes sense to me anyway. That's the most important thing. Rachel, what did you say? So what part do we need to heal? Body or aura, energy, spiritual self? Do you want to type? I don't know whether you're still with us. Well, obviously you're still with us. Otherwise somebody's got to break some bad news to you. I don't know. Do you want to qualify that? Because it was obviously something to do with what I said, if you can remember. Because obviously if we're ill, it's kind of like it's all of it, because it's all the same thing. What do you mean when we become ill? It's important to address all of it, but fundamentally, if I was going to really address illness on a real core level, then it would be on a spiritual level. It would be on a soul level to that person. Nobody is born to come in and end up being allergic to everything, unable to eat anything, unable to breathe, and nobody comes in like that. So on a soul level, you came in as an expression of the universal consciousness. We're all part of the universal consciousness, but we are an individual expression. So we came in to do something to expand the consciousness of the universe, if you like. So what did you come in to do? So if life has kicked you in the ghoulies and you've ended up allergic to everything, living in a one-bedroom flat, you can't eat, you can't drink, you're worried to go out because of pesticides and crap. How did you end up in that situation? And that's normally someone with a really broken spirit, as I say, that's then manifested physical conditions because life's just got too hard for them. And then they're going, because they perceive on a subconscious level the world to be a threatening place, the body then reacts and says the world is a threatening place. So it develops immune condition responses because the world is threatening. So therefore that bread is threatening, this is threatening, the photocopying paper is threatening, everything is a threat. So it attacks everything it comes into contact with. So fundamentally, obviously you've got to try and calm the body down. But fundamentally for me, it's a spiritual thing. You give people the techniques, personal development, to look at those core beliefs, try and get them on a healthy diet, but also spiritual practice to reconnect them to themselves. And being able to connect to the natural world helps. We know that, all the scientific research says, go for a walk in the woods, go for a walk in the park, take some quiet time. It's not, these practices aren't rocket science. So singing in a choir, chanting is an ancient thing, using your voice. They're all the things that we've just become disconnected from in modern society. And that leads to this energetic breakdown, if you like, because we're not living. We're not really living. A lot of people don't really live. They exist and they go from day to day. But they don't really live. They get up, go to work, watch TV, go home, go and watch football at the weekend or go to DFS and buy a sofa. How is that living? It's not, is it? We've got so much potential, and yet people just sort of born, muddle through, live and die. It's a bit of a waste, really. So I don't know whether I've answered your question there, Rachel. When we stop being our true self, divine self, do we split off form soul parts? No, as I said, I don't think we do. I think we just cripple ourselves. I think we're very good at self-sabotage when everything gets a little bit different. And obviously how you're brought up and how your mindset, everything. We absorb so many family patterns from a young age, as I know, that we don't realise how much we're actually playing them out until it all goes badly wrong when we see we've done the same patterns again. Irene's question about getting a release. Oh yeah, if you got stuck somewhere, it's lived with you for days and days and days. Yeah, go. And again, if you find yourself stuck and you've been stuck in a particular, you've been somewhere and you think, oh God, I just can't shake it off. Yeah, going for a walk out in the natural world, because it stimulates your energies, Because when we walk past a tree, I talk about our radial lines going, ooh, like this. Well, the tree goes, ooh. And we don't just link with people, we link with our environment. So if you go somewhere where you're on your own and there's no other people, you will link to the trees, the grass, and their little radials. You will link to the natural world. Take some deep breaths. Just feel the sun on your skin, the air. You go, I am here and I am now. And that's it. That's all that gone. It's about being in the moment, not feeling guilty about the past or stressing about the past or stressing about the future, because none of them actually exist. Your consciousness is in this moment. Your memory is hanging on to the past, and your worry is looking at the future, but they don't actually exist yet. The future hasn't yet been created. We create that moment from moment. So if you're worried about disaster befalling you, that's what you'll create. So don't think about everything positive. And actually, studies have actually shown that thinking positively about past trauma, in effect, it's a great physics study about this. Thinking positive about past trauma changes your present. So it's about, but just look, I say, it's about looking at those experiences, going, God, I feel a bit trapped in that, and going, right, deep breaths. I'm here and I'm now. I'm alive and I'm well. I've got all my limbs. Everything bends in the right way. Generally things are looking rosy, and it's now. Sun's on my skin. I'm looking at the sunset out the window there. It's beautiful, unique every night, and yet it's another day gone, isn't it? Well, not quite gone, but so it is about just being in the moment and not worrying. When I work with horses, one of the things that they struggle with so much when I work with horses and riders is how the rider is, and a lot of their owners are never in the now. They're never ever in the now. They're always thinking about, yeah, you've got a plan for that jump ahead or whatever, but when they're just around them, when they're just grooming them, when they're just cleaning them out, they're never in the now. Their mind is always somewhere else. And if they can get in the now, they're often very good at communicating with their horse, because horses are only ever in the now. They don't think, oh, I was mistreated by that person, therefore this person's going to treat me. They'll say, basically, they're there and they're looking around at the earth energies, because they do see them. And they're there and they're going, is there food? Do I have a herd around me? Are there predators? No, all good. That's about it, really. When they come into work, they go, right, you want me to do this? I'm going to try and learn, put them in a nurturing, supportive environment. Don't shout at them, be encouraging. I create earth energy setups for them so they feel safe, they feel secure, they're not worried about underground water, all those kind of things. And then they're solely focused on the now. And if they got it wrong last time, they don't fret about it. Oh, I got it wrong last time, therefore I'm going to get it right this time, which is what we do. A horse will train it to trip over the pole. It'll still go for the next one. You won't think about, tripped over the last one. It'll do its best at each occasion. And again, my happiness jars fell over. That's what I said. That's about people getting stuck in trauma, is that it then informs how they deal with the next. Which is only, it's a survival thing, isn't it? If we've had a traumatic experience doing that, and we can feel it, the trauma again in our aura, we'll think, oh, I did that last time and I survived. It might not have been the best strategy. So it is about being a bit more self-aware. So yeah, releasing trauma, it is, you can release it yourself. There are all sorts of people going, oh, I need to wave my hands over you and release the trauma. Nobody else can really release anything else from your energy field. What people who do, and you kind of create a safe space for someone to release their gubbins without judgment. And in essence, that's what healers do. I mean, there's another study coming out soon that I'm just waiting to come out in a physics magazine about healing, because it is being studied by physicists now. It's great, but there is no exchange of energy within healing, because people go, oh, I'm going to move that energy, going to put some good energy in and all this stuff. There is no, one of the theories is there's no exchange of energy. I've talked about energy being, work or heat from one body to another. There is no exchange of energy. What there is, they think, is an exchange of information. So you're allowing people to, but it's not between the healer and the client either. It's between the universe and the person, that person is able to shed off the harmful information and take in the information that is going to create wellness. I'm waiting for that study to come out because it sounds really exciting. So yeah, that's coming out. I think it's there's a convention in America later in the year. I think it's in November. Can't get there, but never mind. So yeah, so all these kind of things. I've gone really a bit off track about the aura, but all these kinds of information, believe, all these kind of information, all these kind of things are within your aura. So how you go around it's just your physical body and your energetic bodies, however you want to see them, layers within the aura structures. However, I don't think it really matters how we see them, because Hands of Light book, there's all sorts of things about how other people see energies, layers, chakras. Yeah, I think it's just we have to learn how we interface, if you like, with these layers. So I see chakras as these quite symmetrical, kind of almost like very simplified kaleidoscopic structures, much more akin to the original sort of Hindu drawings of these things. And neither do I see them red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet, because that kind of scheme actually came out of America in the 1960s, at the back end of the modern Feng Shui movement. Those aren't the traditional colours of the chakras, and I see them much more in terms of the traditional ancient, in the ancient Tibetan texts and things like that. So I see them as more of those kind of colours. If I was going to express a colour within them, but they're a little bit of everything anyway. So there are all sorts of layers within us. It's important that we learn how to be in control of our own energy, because we're not actually trying to control anybody else's. Not unless you're doing martial arts of some description, Mark, and then obviously you are trying to control somebody else's energy. But generally, it's enough for us to be in control of our own energy, to be confident, positive people that can help other people, to say it's okay to be who you are. It's okay to shine your light. It's equally okay to say you're feeling rubbish, down at the mouth, depressed and emotionally vulnerable. The same is okay to say, I'm feeling brilliant, the vibe's high, and I'm flying, I'm doing great. And every stage in between is okay. It's just that modern society has such an extreme problem. It's almost like we've got this one mold fits all, one body type, one emotional, one mindset, one everything. And of course, we're not like that, are we? And it's that pressure upon people as well. That they don't feel. I say they don't. Most people do. A lot of people, not most, a lot of people are not comfortable in their own skin, and that again is visible in their energy field. Most of the damage, as I say, comes from our mindset. It comes from how we're brought up to think and believe, and the thoughts and beliefs that we take on through life. So it's important to, as I say, don't believe everything you think, and to keep an open mind, and to learn, read, develop. So where have we got to? I've lost. Yeah, create safe space. Sorry, while I read through. Talk amongst yourselves a minute. Create safe space just to detect their own hearing. Yeah. Once you understand, understanding, it's coming to that awareness. I mean, there's so many books on philosophy, self-help, personal development. Although they're written from that standpoint, a lot of them written for that standpoint, without reference to energetic bodies, if you like, the aura or the chakra. Those, I think, are the key things to actually manipulating that energy. I've read an awful lot of books about healing and energies and esoteric, and with the best will in the world, a lot of healers, and don't get me wrong, there are some very good healers who talk about manipulating, energies and clearing off trauma in the chakras and clearing off gunk and all the rest of it, and then that person gets well. But if I was going to critique both standpoints, personal development, esoteric healing, again, the common factor of what that person getting well is actually them, because it depends on their belief set, doesn't it? So if you're doing personal development and you're saying, right, I'm going to go through all these tactics, and if I work really hard at it, my life will change, and you believe that, with every cell of your being, then that's what will happen. You will manifest that reality. Now, if you've got someone who says, oh, I'm really ill, I need a healer, and they go and see that healer, oh, here comes my spiritual advisor, hello, Smobo. If they go and see a healer, he's telling me it's, yes, oh no, is little Johnny stuck down a well and the train's coming? Oh no, sorry, kids animal programs. So if that person goes and sees a healer and they have allowed in their mind for that person to release that energies, at the moment that that healer comes in with their hands to do something, that person is already ready for that energy to leave. They perceive that person to be the person who's going to be the influencing factor. Actually, if you take a step back, their decision to release that energy has already been made by going to the healer. And what they then do, hello Smo, don't stick your tail up in the camera. What they then do then is they've already given themselves permission to let go, and it's just a timing thing. It's just like a trigger then that the person comes along. But fundamentally, it's that person. Hey, hello Smo, my little Smo, not camera shy. So it's that person who's giving themselves permission to get well. They're just doing it by perceiving that somebody else can do it, as perceiving that they can do it. Fundamentally, they are in control of their own energy field. So when I work with people and horses, as I say, the fundamental thing, one of the things that I teach people to learn is to be very much aware of their aura, and to not neglect it in its various forms. So with cats walking over the desk. So there is an energetic exchange, as I said, that occurs between us and animals, us and people, us and plants, us and the environment, and all sorts of things. Your energy is not one thing. It is constantly moving. It is constantly changing. It's a constant state of flux. It's continually responding. And when we get in a preemptive nervous state, it's also continually preemptive and waiting for disaster to strike. So it's, as I say, it's very much about being in the now and being aware of who we are and being aware of what we're doing and our self-worth and everything. So yeah, I don't know if that, I hope it answered some people's questions. I'm going to do a series of these because people sent me various questions about chakras relating to plants, the aura, whether I see them in colours, all sorts of things. So I'd like to continue this as a live thing, so we keep the discussion going, and hopefully we'll bring more people on board. And yeah, so that will be it for tonight, because my cat's gonna want feeding in a second, aren't you, baby? Oh, and I'm just gonna finish with a little my daughter's happiness jar. She makes these for me, so I will and at the end of the day, when I'm feeling a bit tired, she makes me dip into the happiness jar of things that she's pulled out for me to give me a good end to the day, or a good start to the day. So my happiness jar gift to everyone tonight in this little statement is: you are gorgeous, absolutely fabulous, darling. So tonight, when everybody, you can say to yourself now, the little happiness jar has said, you are gorgeous. So that's one of your positive statements to say to yourself every morning when you get up, is you say to yourself, I am gorgeous, darling. And you have to look at yourself with absolute love, because at the end of the day, that's what the universe is actually made of: information, and what makes it a reality is in essence almost love, in its purest form, manifestation of matter. So that will be, I hope people have found that interesting. I hope people haven't nodded off. And I hope everybody who's joined us stayed to the end, or those who've joined halfway through, and all the rest of it. So yeah, thanks everybody for joining. If you were here live, great. If you're watching it on replay, can you put #replay so I know you've watched it afterwards? And if you comment, I will reply, obviously. And if you've got any questions that weren't answered, do put them in the comments box, and we'll take it forward to hopefully this time next week, 7:30 next Thursday. All right, have a good evening, everybody, and I will see you anon. All right, bye.